Next, I want you to understand how to perform a kettlebell circuit, as well as how to plan and craft your own circuit, understanding the right level of weight and repetitions that you might do throughout each circuit in your week. These kettlebell circuits are basically scaled down versions of the full body days that I do in the gym with different resistance exercises. I recommend starting here because it's a really low friction way to build familiarity with resistance training. That way you'll be more established. If you do want to progress into the gym doing more advanced exercises, you'll have a really solid foundation. A quick thing to note about doing circuits is that I can't give you a hard number of repetitions or weight to do for any particular exercise, because that's entirely dependent on your personalized level of experience and strength in the gym already. What we're gonna do to keep it really simple to start is just start out doing 10 repetitions of each exercise, progressing sequentially through the circuit, and we will consider that as one set. However, I do emphasize that you try to find the exact line. For something like a bicep curl, I might be able to do 15 or 20 by the time I hit fatigue in my bicep. So I encourage you to find where that level of repetitions is for yourself. Not to get too ahead of myself, but I do want to note that this is different than the full body workouts that we'll be doing later in the program, where you generally want to perform one exercise at a certain level of reps, take a minute to rest, and then go and do another exercise rather than immediately jumping between exercises for your set. So the first circuit consists of push-ups, kettlebell split squats, kettlebell rows, a front raise, and then crunches. So we're gonna start out doing 10 repetitions of each. First, we start with 10 push-ups. And you're certainly welcome to rest for a small amount of time between each exercise. Next, we're gonna do a kettlebell split squat. So I like to take my leading foot and my opposite hand with the weight, find a chair or a bench or something that works for you, and then focus on driving your back knee to the floor, primarily weighting that front knee. And 10. And you're gonna wanna do the other leg as well. Another helpful reminder is to progress through these slowly so that you're able to get good range of motion across both your stretched and contracted state of your muscle. Next, we're gonna do a kettlebell row. For a kettlebell row, I make sure that my elbow is about 45 degrees out, and I'm imagining pulling the weight into my belly button or my sternum, somewhere along that line. Focusing on pulling your shoulder blade back toward your spine. Again, we'll do 10 on the other side. And you want to be careful when you're doing rows that you're not excessively bending your lower back or rounding over. You want to make sure that you're relatively neutral. You have some amount of engagement with your hamstrings as you're performing the row. Next, we'll do a kettlebell front raise. So gripping both sides of the kettlebell, pulling up with your deltoids. Your elbows are relatively straight and go to about eye level. And you might notice for some of these exercises, you can do way more than 10 reps. I encourage you to find the line. If you can do 20, do 20. And then finishing it off with crunches. You might be able to get far more than 10. You might be able to only get 3. Find your line, and I encourage you to write it down. So that entire sequence of exercises we can consider for a circuit to be one set. And I encourage you to try to increase the number of sets that you're doing as you increase the number of reps. up to a certain point. Aiming for any given session to do 2 to 3 sets is great. And remember that it's not all or nothing. You can definitely scale this down to your appetite for the week or for any given day.